Greetings, Lifeform! I'm always on the hunt for peculiar-looking glass containers. In my absence, my amazing partner Lifeform discovered this, which I have dubbed the Double Glass Bubble Terrarium. Let's get into the build.
Welcome to the Microverse.
Here are some materials that we'll be using throughout this build. Aquarium gravel for the false bottom. I'll be using my own concoction of ABG mix for substrate. I'll be using these pieces of Malaysian driftwood for hardscape, and these assortment of mosses. I also added a couple of cuttings of oak leaf creeping fig, my favorite kind of fig, as well as this strawberry begonia. Our build starts, as it always does, with the false bottom. Now, because this is an open terrarium, it doesn't necessarily need a false bottom, but I don't want to get stuck in the impossible scenario of having a dry terrarium that is overwatered. If you know what that is, you know what that is. It is now time to add the springtails, my bioactive cleanup crew. These are tropical springtails, which I have propagated on wet charcoal. I'd like to add a layer of that charcoal to my terrarium. The charcoal itself helps purify the water as it goes through the water cycle, and it serves as a breeding medium for springtails. I then mixed a batch of ABG substrate mix. Here's a list of materials that I used: sphagnum moss, potting soil, reptibark, old aqua soil, sand, and some of the Critters Jungle ABG mix, a tropical one. I don't really measure any of these components. I just go as a as-needed basis. If I need the substrate to be a bit more arid, I'll just add more sand and less potting soil. If I wanted to retain more water, I'll add some more sphagnum moss. After sloping the substrate towards the back left side of the bubble, I start adding some hardscape. Don't be afraid to try different layouts over and over until you're satisfied, but it's a good idea to create a layout in your mind. Some like to sketch out their ideas, some have a scaping dojo. I take a more hands-on approach. I will imagine a general layout, and then I'll start experimenting. I'll move things as I think is necessary, and as I always say, if you don't like the way something looks, wiggle it around until you like how it looks. After settling on a hardscape layout, I start the planting process. I start with my centerpiece plant, a strawberry begonia, a little baby strawberry begonia. I add some star moss and string moss to the back area of the bubble. I chose these specific mosses because they will grow vertically and are best placed in the background. I also added little tufts of pincushion moss between the string moss to add variation in texture. I pepper a smaller variety of pincushion moss throughout the terrarium, as it tends to spread horizontally and should be carpeting the foreground of the terrarium in the long run. After all the moss has settled, I add a couple of cuttings of oak leaf creeping fig, my favorite kind of fig. I then add smaller details like finer twigs, a couple of small dragonstones here and there. What? 60% of them are not subscribed? This is what it looked like by the end. And here is what it looks like about a week later. If you enjoyed this build, then you might enjoy this video next. If you want to see some more shenanigans, here's a playlist. And if you haven't yet, click this button. This one here. Yes.